Hey, all my Aries friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, angel therapy practitioner, Reiki master, and empowerment coach. And I'm here today with your February 2023 monthly horoscope. These horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. I'm basing this on your rising sign. So when I talk about the houses, it's going to be based on Aries rising. If you don't know your rising sign, all you need is the time of birth and location of birth. And you can go to any one of the free calculators on the internet and get that information. So let's jump right in. The month starts off on February 4th with, I think, a pretty interesting day. The moon is in Leo at 6 degrees in your fifth house, trining Jupiter at 6 degrees in your first house. So this to me is a day that will be, or what I think will be, it'll bring out the emotional side of you, a passionate side of you, a part of you that may get very excited about what you're creating, what you're endeavoring. You may feel a childlike excitement about things. And it could be a very good day to spend with your children or purporting childlike activities. It's a good day for feeling empowered and excited and passionate about romance. That's the way I want to put it. The fifth house, Leo, is your house of romance, and Jupiter is transiting your first house of self until May. And Jupiter in and of itself is very expansive. It represents faith. It represents philosophy and ideology. It represents foreign travel, foreign ideas, foreign people, foreign cultures, and this diversity that at the same time creates a unity. So I think you'll be feeling a sense of inspiration on that day. On the same day, we have Venus in Pisces in the 12th house, squaring Mars in Gemini in the third house. Venus is at 10 degrees and Mars is at 11 degrees. And this to me is very much indicating a sense of my self-worth, my thoughts. Whenever I see ones, I always think it's the master number of thought. So the 10th degree, while it represents Capricorn, and the 11th degree represents Aquarius, both right now are representing how do I think. So Venus in Pisces in the 12th house for you is really kind of digging deep into garnishing what you have experienced over this last couple of years and integrating it into a new sense of self, which may feel odd in the beginning because Mars in Gemini in your third house may really trigger this sort of polarity between how you have evolved and what your imprinted habitual way of thinking is. I always think of a square as sort of this tense aspect between an evolved version of myself that I'm not used to practicing in the 3D world and my default, what has been imprinted on me. And Mars here to me, while it is making a square, I feel like it's taxing Venus to take her power back and to let ancestral patterns lie where they are. I don't believe really in releasing. I myself am an Aries rising, so I don't release very easily, but I can incorporate and make sense of. So while we just talked about the moon giving you a sense of inspiration with making that trine to Jupiter, there's also going to be this opportunity for you to sort of sit back and look at how you perceive yourself and your thoughts. And while the square may feel a little bit funky, to me, it really doesn't have deep roots in that funk. It has more of this opportunity for me to engage the Mars energy in being brave and courageous in examining things, and rather than defaulting to the old story, having enough awareness to implement the evolved version of myself and the tools I've garnished, whether it be meditation or whether it be, vision boards, whether it be just spending time in a creative endeavor, but an awareness of my thoughts that is sort of taking me in into two different directions, the old version of me and the new version of me. And both versions are really to be integrated. I have a lot of resistance to the idea of releasement ceremonies, because I don't believe that the human can actually release anything, but rather incorporate it into their present experience. How can I turn that dark spot in my life into a situation that makes the color in my life pop? And that's why I think Venus is representing my self-worth, how I view my creativity. The 12th house by nature is a very creative sign, or a very creative house. It's where we dance, where we have poetry, where we create and imagine things. Pisces is very, very dreamy that way. We also have on the 4th, Uranus in Taurus at the 15th degree moving forward. This is your second house. The second house is naturally ruled by Venus in Taurus. And so here at the same time, on the same day, with Venus making a square to Mars and Uranus in your second house is making a square to the sun, exact square in your 11th house, it really feels like this is a day of branching out a little bit, like taking a risk in some way. It almost feels as if giving yourself permission to be aware of maybe your fears, your trepidations, your where you're unsure, but then persevering through that and allowing yourself the privilege of experiencing your own intentional liberation. I think this is a really great way to start the month. It's also as I said, all the planets are moving forward now. Mars is out of its shadow period by the time we get to the early February, and Mercury is out of its shadow period. So there is this real feeling of things pacing up. On the 5th of February, we will have a full moon in Leo. I will be doing a separate video on that. We've had a series of full moons at the 16th degree, which I think is extremely important. So I'm going to address that and go into the houses that will affect for you then. On the 9th or the 10th, depending on where you are in the world, we will have Mercury at 28 degrees in Capricorn, making an exact conjunction to Pluto, which has been transiting Capricorn for years. And this is really an opportunity. Capricorn is your 10th house. The 28th degree reduces down to a 10. Capricorn is the 10th house, the 10th sign. And here again, we're seeing this theme of the ones representing a review of our thoughts. I, as a person and as an intuitive astrologer, absolutely believe in the divine laws of the universe. I believe in the law of attraction, which is kicked in by my thoughts, my focused thoughts. So this really gives me an opportunity, as Mercury is now moving direct and at the very end of Capricorn, to re-examine what is my self-talk? Where am I absorbing information? And is that information feeding my fear or feeding my empowerment? On the 11th, Mercury will move into Aquarius, your 11th house. And this is really an opportunity to start to stretch yourself within your networks, to be able to, Mars is your ruling planet, and Mars has been in Gemini for 7 months or 6.5 months at this point, maybe. And so it's really given you an opportunity, Aries, to see how you operate and interact with others. And as we go through the forward motion of Mars in Gemini and now Mercury moving into Aquarius, I think this gives you an opportunity to see an evolved version of yourself, to see yourself rather than, potentially too blunt, too assertive in other people's eyes, to really implement that leadership and to allow yourself the privilege of going your own way, meaning allowing your perceptions, your perspective, your point of view to be presented out into your networks. I also want to offer this because Mercury entering Aquarius, Aquarius is your 11th house of hopes and dreams. It's also a house that matures over time and offers monetary reward. So at this point, through what you've discovered with Mercury transiting Capricorn and going retrograde in Capricorn, you may have had an opportunity to start a rebirth and rebuilding something that you're excited about moving forward as Mercury transits Aquarius and so on. On the 15th of February, we will see Venus at 24 degrees Pisces at an exact conjunction with Neptune at 24 degrees Pisces. Venus's best friend is Pisces. She loves being there. And when we get Venus and Neptune together, we see a very dreamy, dreamy energy. There is almost this feeling of imagination and fantasy and sort of this, I don't know, I like hear angels in the back of my head, singing. And I want to honor that energy. We could look at Neptune as being, a loose, delusionary, a little bit illusionary. But here I feel like the conversation that Venus had earlier in the month with Mars brings her into this space a couple of weeks later where she starts to give life to her dreams. She starts to understand here where when I spend time alone, I have an opportunity to really flesh out and to nurture my dreams, my desires, my creativity through my perception. Now, at the same time, there's going to be a brief square from the moon. And I think this moon is actually in Sagittarius. So I think this is where there could be a little moment of trepidation or unsureness. And then it feels as if you allow yourself this privilege to go where you've never gone before in the way you believe in yourself. Again, Sagittarius rules the large concepts, ruled by Jupiter. It rules ideologies. It rules the connection to the angelic realm, and it rules new experiences, foreign ideas, things that I have never lived in the 3D world. So here, while there's a square, I actually think this is more about giving yourself privilege to be dreamy, to believe in your creativity. Maybe this would be a good time to use dance in the form of, as a form of meditation, so that, Aries likes to move. Aries is not really too good at sitting still. So finding the viability in how you roll emotionally, and then allowing that to integrate with what Venus and Neptune are offering you right now, which is a spiritual dynamic that allows you to understand that your chutzpah, your passion, and inadvertently the assertion that comes with that is all grandly designed on some level, so that you can embrace both dynamics rather than trying to purport behaviors that don't feel natural to you. On the 18th, we have the sun moving into Pisces, which will be your 12th house. And, again, this is just a time when, you have an opportunity to really play with the creative side of Pisces. On the 19th, the next day, we'll have a new moon in Pisces. I will be doing a separate video on that, as we've had a series of new moons at the 1st degree. And to me, these are all teeing up the birth of new dynamics in our lives. So I'm going to do a separate video on that. On the 20th, Venus will move into Aries. And, Venus, while she loves being in Pisces, when she gets into Aries, she gets a little fiery. She gets a little feisty. She, it's Mars's hometown, but at the same time, I get this feeling that Venus kind of comes in and she's like, swaying her hips back and forth. There's kind of this feeling of, I want to use the word confidence, but it feels a little bit more like sass. And I like that idea, because I think it makes Venus a kind of an interesting energy here. It also makes her be able to push through some of her doubts. this idea that Aries is a bit of a lone soldier, willing to go, and pioneer into new lands. This is where Venus is not, I don't think she purports this feminine sort of delicate energy here. She purports more of a passionate, taking no prisoners energy here, I think. So this happens on the 20th. And then on the 25th, she has started to come into contact with Jupiter and Chiron. On the 25th, she'll be at 7 degrees. Aries starting to form a conjunction with Jupiter at 11 degrees, and then Chiron at 13 degrees. This is where I believe Venus representing our self-worth, representing our ability to make money, to receive bounty, to allow myself my skills and to find value in my skills and bounty within them. Because I really believe there is a rewriting of how we view ourselves and the co-creation that we have power over on this planet and our earthly experience. So Chiron now is the wounded healer, right? So it's the wound, but it is also the gift, because as we reconcile the wound, we transform that into a gift. Jupiter brings wealth and expansion, and Venus brings a sense of I want to offer it this way. Here, I want to say determination to go my own way, to use my skills, to make myself feel comfortable and secure in the world. And so I believe that as Venus was in Capricorn and then moved into Aquarius, she really was re-examining some of the structures, willing to break the box. And then when she got back into Pisces, she was sort of taking this time to spiritually connect with the deeper truth of her heart and examine where ancestral patterns have affected her. So now, in forming this conjunction with Chiron and Jupiter, I believe that this is where we're going to see the higher vibration of this dynamic. I don't feel as if this is where the wound gets exasperated. I feel like the conscious individual or the conscious soul inhabiting a physical experience will start to see the wisdom of disruption in their life, the wisdom of sometimes the things we think we want and that we don't get are actually not at the highest level of what is possible, or is at the most fulfilling level of what is possible. And here I feel like the brave dynamic of Aries, the hero in Aries is sitting in this energy saying, you know what, I'm willing to look at what I believe. I'm willing to expand on myself. I'm willing to let resentments that I have felt about whatever wounds I have. The Chiron in Aries is going to be a wound about the self, about how you project yourself or how you see the possibilities of the self, being a viable, thriving energy in the world. Your ideas, your creations. This is a very much a singular energy here. So I think this is really powerful, but I also think that it's going to require a bit of focused thought and intention about how I want to process, because inadvertently, there could be the challenge that, meaning when I say inadvertently, those that are not walking a conscious path within this life may find their wound exasperated and their self-worth sort of maybe even feeling, what's the point? And that is the very moment when you get to take the reins of your life and say, the point is, I'm here. My wants and desires are viable. My wants and desires are important. And now I get to focus on that in a way that isn't about looking at what didn't work, but rather looking at what is possible in the future. Because on the 28th, we're going to see Mercury at 27 degrees of Aquarius, making a conjunction to Saturn. And I think this is, on the heels of the Venus, Jupiter, Chiron, as it becomes conjunct is at the same time, basically, because these influences last a few days, as Mercury becoming conjunct in Aquarius with Saturn. So there's this real opportunity to look at how am I supporting the version of myself and what I want to experience and what I want to birth into the world. Am I lined up? Am I allowing myself the privilege of letting resentments and anger and frustrations sit on the side of the road? Because if you cannot physically or mentally do anything about them, does it serve you to focus on them? And that's where I think Mercury and Saturn are coming together, because I feel like the 29th degree of Saturn is the anaretic degree. It's the culmination. It's the mastering energy of the sign. And here Saturn's at home in Aquarius. And I really believe Saturn is willing to have, renovated structures, but Saturn is also very much wanting, if you make a decision, Aries, Saturn is going to hold your feet to the fire to follow through. And this is, again, Aquarius is your 11th house. So this is about following through with your hopes and your dreams, following through and having a tenacity and a steadfastness of having fortitude and not assessing the viability or I want to say the timeline. There's something about staying focused on the goal rather than the steps in between that will actually accelerate your experience rather than slowing it down. And you may have experienced quite a bit of frustration during Mars's retrograde in Gemini. And having the combination of Mercury and Mars retrograde the first half of January could have very much exasperated that. So now I think what Spirit is doing is sort of offering you an opportunity to let that sit in January and then take February and move the story forward with more intentional actions rather than reactions. And I think this will be very, very powerful moving forward. When we get into March, Saturn is going to move into Pisces, and that's going to be there for almost 2 years between the retrogrades. So we're going to see a lot of opportunity to master our spirituality there. And I think this month of February is sort of teeing all that energy up. So that's it for me for February 2023. Again, my name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer. I hope you'll join me Sunday mornings live, 11 a.m. Pacific time, where we look at the week ahead's transits and we get the angels' advice for traversing the transits. And if you'd like to book a reading with me or book an astrology reading with me, my information is below. Just send me an email and I'll send you information. Thank you so much, Aries. I will see you soon, and be sure to look out for your March 2023 monthly horoscopes. Bye-bye.